Hello there, and welcome back to Drowsy Discoveries. Find a comfortable position right now. Let your body settle into whatever is beneath you and take one slow, deep breath in and let it all the way out. Tonight, we're going to drift together down to the edge of the ocean. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to think about anything. Just listen. The ocean has been here for billions of years, long before any of us, long before cities or roads or clocks. It has been breathing in and out, just like you're doing right now. I'm going to share with you 100 of the ocean's quietest secrets. Little facts. Soft, sleepy truths about the deep blue world beneath the waves. Each one is a small door into something vast and calm and ancient. You don't need to remember any of them. You don't need to hold on to a single word. Just let them wash over you the way water washes over sand. Let's begin. The ocean covers about 71% of the Earth's surface. More than 2/3 of our entire planet is water. Right now, wherever you are, there is more ocean in the world than anything else. More blue than green. More sea than sky. That's the world you live on. A water world. The ocean holds about 96.5% of all the water on Earth. The lakes, the rivers, the clouds, the ice caps, all of it combined makes up just a small fraction of what the ocean holds. The ocean is patient. It keeps most of the world's water to itself, quietly, without any fuss at all. Scientists believe the ocean formed about 3.8 billion years ago. That's so long ago that even the oldest mountains on Earth hadn't been born yet. The ocean was already here, already deep, already dark, already moving in the same slow rhythm it still moves in today. There are 5 named oceans: the Pacific, the Atlantic, the Indian, the Southern, and the Arctic, but they are all connected. All one continuous body of water. One enormous planetary ocean with many names, like a single slow breath divided into parts. The Pacific Ocean is the largest. It covers more area than all of Earth's land combined. If you set every continent side by side, the Pacific would still be bigger. It stretches from the Arctic in the north to the Antarctic in the south. It is the largest single thing on the surface of this planet. The word ocean comes from the ancient Greek word okeanos, the name the Greeks gave to the great river they believed circled the entire world. They imagined a vast, slow, circular current flowing endlessly around the edges of everything known. In a way, they weren't entirely wrong. The color of the ocean comes from the way water absorbs light. Water absorbs red wavelengths easily, but blue light travels deeper. So the deeper you go, the bluer everything becomes, until eventually the blue fades to black and there is no light at all. The average depth of the ocean is about 3,600 meters, roughly 2¼ miles. If you dropped an object from the surface of the open ocean, in most places it would fall for more than 2 miles before it touched the bottom. The ocean produces about half of the world's oxygen. Not the forests, not the meadows, the ocean. Much of that oxygen comes from tiny microscopic plants called phytoplankton, little flecks of life so small you cannot see them, drifting just below the surface, making the air you breathe right now. Sound travels nearly 5 times faster through water than through air. The ocean is full of sound, whale songs, the clicking of shrimp, the low groans of shifting tectonic plates far below. It is never completely silent down there, but heard from here, it sounds like nothing at all. Just deep, soft, quiet. The deepest point in the ocean is called Challenger Deep. It sits in the Mariana Trench in the Pacific, and it reaches about 11,000 meters below the surface, nearly 7 miles down. If you placed Mount Everest inside it, the peak would still be more than a mile underwater. More people have walked on the surface of the moon than have visited the bottom of the Mariana Trench. The deepest point on our own planet remains one of the least visited places in the known universe. At the bottom of the ocean, the pressure is more than 1,000 times greater than at the surface. It is the equivalent of having 50 jumbo jets stacked on top of you. And yet, life exists there. Strange, slow, patient life. The ocean floor is not flat. It has mountains, valleys, volcanoes, plains, and canyons. There are mountain ranges beneath the sea that are longer than any on land. The mid-ocean ridge system stretches more than 40,000 miles around the globe, the longest mountain range on Earth, and almost entirely hidden beneath the waves. Most of the ocean floor remains unmapped. We have better maps of the surface of Mars than we do of our own ocean floor. More than 80% of the underwater world has never been seen, visited, or studied. Hydrothermal vents are cracks in the ocean floor where superheated water rushes up from deep inside the Earth. The water near these vents can reach temperatures of more than 400 degrees Celsius, and yet life thrives there. Strange tube-like worms, eyeless shrimp, ghostly crabs. An entire ecosystem fueled not by sunlight, but by the heat of the Earth itself. The ocean floor is slowly spreading. At the mid-ocean ridges, new crust is constantly being created as magma wells up from beneath. The Atlantic Ocean, for example, is growing wider by about 2.5 centimeters every year. The continents are still drifting very slowly, the way they always have. There are underwater rivers in the ocean. Called density currents, they form when water becomes denser due to temperature or salt content and sinks, flowing along the ocean floor like slow rivers of liquid. They carry sediment and cold water across vast distances, completely invisible from the surface. The ocean contains about 20 million tons of gold. It's dissolved in seawater in tiny amounts, roughly 13 billionths of a gram per litre. That's so little you'd need to process enormous amounts of water to collect any of it. The gold is there. It's just not worth going after. The ocean keeps its riches quietly. The ocean stores an enormous amount of heat. It acts as a massive thermal buffer for the entire planet, absorbing warmth in summer and releasing it slowly in winter. Without the ocean, temperatures on land would swing to wild extremes. The ocean is quietly keeping the world livable right now, as you breathe and settle and drift towards sleep. The blue whale is the largest animal to have ever lived on Earth, larger than any dinosaur. An adult blue whale can reach 30 meters in length and weigh as much as 200 tons. Its heart is roughly the size of a small car. And yet it feeds almost entirely on tiny shrimp-like creatures called krill, each no bigger than your finger. Blue whales can communicate with each other across entire ocean basins. Their calls are so low in frequency and so powerful that they can travel thousands of miles through deep water. Two whales on opposite sides of an ocean can hear each other. The ocean carries their voices slowly across the dark. Sperm whales can dive to depths of more than 2 kilometers and hold their breath for up to 90 minutes. As they descend, their heartbeat slows dramatically from 100 beats per minute to just a few. They become still inside to survive the dark and the pressure below. Octopuses have 3 hearts, blue blood, and a brain that extends partially into each of their 8 arms. Each arm can act somewhat independently, touching, tasting, and even making simple decisions on its own. A resting octopus is never entirely asleep. There is always something moving, gently. Jellyfish have existed for more than 500 million years. They appeared before the dinosaurs, before trees, before fish. They have no brain, no heart, no bones. Just a soft, pulsing bell of translucent tissue and trailing tentacles. And they have outlasted almost everything else that ever lived. Patient beyond all measure. Some deep-sea fish produce their own light through a process called bioluminescence. In the perpetual darkness below 1,000 meters, creatures glow, blue and green and cold white. Anglerfish dangle glowing lures in front of their mouths. Firefly squid flash in patterns. The deep ocean has its own soft, dark light show going on right now, far below. The mantis shrimp has 16 different types of color receptors in its eyes. Humans have 3. The mantis shrimp sees a world so full of color and light that we have no framework to imagine it. It looks at the same ocean and sees something completely different. The world contains more than we will ever know. Sea turtles can navigate across entire oceans using the Earth's magnetic field. A turtle hatched on a beach in Florida can cross the Atlantic, live in European waters for decades, and then return to the exact beach where it was born, guided by a magnetic map inside its body. Home. Always finding its way home. Some coral reefs are thousands of years old. The Great Barrier Reef is home to coral organisms that have been growing slowly for millennia. A coral doesn't rush. It builds its limestone skeleton grain by grain, year by year, generation by generation. The reef is one of the slowest wonders in the world. The ocean sunfish, or mola mola, is the heaviest bony fish on Earth. It can weigh more than 2,000 kilograms. It spends much of its life near the surface, drifting with the current and warming itself in the sun. It is large and slow and calm and a little bit dreamy looking, with enormous, soft eyes. A gentle giant, just floating along. The tides are caused by the gravitational pull of the moon and the sun. The moon, being closer, has more influence. Twice a day, on most coastlines, the ocean rises and falls in response to the moon's quiet tug. Right now, somewhere on Earth, a tide is coming in. Somewhere else, it's going out. The ocean breathes twice a day, pulled by the moon. The highest tides in the world occur in the Bay of Fundy in Nova Scotia, Canada. The water can rise and fall by more than 16 meters, about 5 stories, in just 6 hours. The mud flats that appear at low tide disappear completely beneath the sea when the tide returns. The land itself seems to breathe. Ocean currents are like rivers within the sea. Driven by wind, temperature, and the rotation of the Earth, they flow in great loops and gyres across the surface of the ocean. The Gulf Stream carries warm water from the Gulf of Mexico northeast across the Atlantic, making much of northern Europe warmer than it would otherwise be. A current in the sea, warming an entire continent. The global ocean conveyor belt, sometimes called the thermohaline circulation, is a system of deep currents that carries water slowly around the entire planet. A single drop of water entering this system off the coast of Iceland might take roughly 1,000 years to complete a full circuit around the world. 1,000 years. Still moving. Still returning. Ocean gyres are enormous circular current systems. There are 5 major gyres in the world's oceans. They spin slowly, some clockwise and some counterclockwise, depending on which hemisphere they sit in. They are among the most persistent motions on the surface of the planet. Waves are not water moving forward. When a wave passes through the ocean, the water itself moves mostly in a circular path, rising and falling, but not traveling with the wave. It's the energy that moves, passing through the water like a thought moving through a mind. What you see on the surface is not water traveling. It's a message passing through. The longest waves in the ocean are called swell. They form far out at sea during storms and travel enormous distances with very little energy loss. A swell that begins in a storm near Antarctica can travel all the way to the beaches of California, arriving weeks later as a gentle, rolling wave, still carrying the memory of a storm 10,000 miles away. Rogue waves, also called freak waves, are massive walls of water that can appear suddenly in the open ocean, far larger than the surrounding waves. They were once thought to be sailors' myth. Now, they are confirmed by science. A wall of water, 20 or 30 meters high, appearing without warning. The ocean still holds surprises no one expected. Internal waves are waves that form deep inside the ocean along the boundary between layers of water of different densities. They can be hundreds of meters tall, taller than any surface wave, and yet invisible from above. Giant waves moving slowly in the deep dark, and the surface of the sea above them remains perfectly calm. El Niño is a periodic warming of the surface waters of the central and eastern tropical Pacific Ocean. It ripples outward to affect weather patterns across the entire planet, bringing floods to some regions, droughts to others. A patch of warm water, reshaping the weather of the whole world. Seawater contains about 35 grams of dissolved salt per litre, roughly a teaspoon and a half. Most of that salt is sodium chloride, the same as table salt. The ocean has been salty for billions of years. Salt washed from the land by rivers and rain accumulated over deep time, grain by grain. If you removed all the salt from the ocean and spread it over the Earth's land surfaces, it would form a layer more than 160 meters deep, nearly as tall as the Washington Monument. All of that dissolved quietly in the sea. The Dead Sea, though technically a lake, is so salty that you can float in it without trying. Your body simply rises, held by the density of the water. Effortless. That's what very salty water does. It holds you up. It refuses to let you sink. The Arctic and Antarctic oceans are less salty than tropical oceans. That's partly because they receive large amounts of fresh water from melting ice and precipitation. Salinity affects density, which affects how water moves, which shapes the great circulations of the global ocean. Even the salt is part of the system. Water is one of the few substances on Earth that expands when it freezes. Ice is less dense than liquid water, which is why it floats. If ice sank, the bottoms of lakes and oceans would freeze solid in winter and never thaw, and life in water would be nearly impossible. That the ocean is alive at all depends on this one peculiar property of water. The ocean absorbs roughly 30% of the carbon dioxide that humans release into the atmosphere. It acts as a carbon sink, drawing in the gas and dissolving it into seawater. The ocean has been quietly buffering human emissions for generations. Patient, absorbing, doing the quiet work. Seawater glows blue at night in some places due to bioluminescent plankton. When disturbed by waves, by a swimming body, by a hand trailed through the water, these microscopic creatures emit a flash of cold, blue light. Beaches in places like the Maldives and Puerto Rico have nights where the waves glow blue with every break. The ocean floor has more ancient history preserved in it than almost anywhere else on land. Deep sea sediments build up slowly, just a few centimeters every 1,000 years, and can preserve a record of Earth's climate going back millions of years. Scientists drill into the seafloor and pull up cores of sediment like pulling up memory. Freshwater springs can exist on the ocean floor. Where underground aquifers meet the sea, fresh water seeps upward through the salt water. In some places near coastlines, you can find spots in the ocean floor where fresh water bubbles quietly up from below, cold and clear and old. The ocean is not one temperature. The surface layer is warmed by the sun and can reach 30 degrees Celsius in the tropics. But just a few hundred meters down, the water cools dramatically. The deep ocean mostly sits just above freezing, a vast, cold, dark world beneath the warmth above. Submarine canyons are deep valleys carved into the continental shelves and slopes. Some are as dramatic as the Grand Canyon or larger. They were often carved by ancient rivers during ice ages when sea levels were much lower. The valleys of old rivers, now sunk beneath the sea. Flooded memories of a drier world. The ocean holds the world's largest waterfall. The Denmark Strait Cataract lies beneath the surface between Greenland and Iceland, where cold, dense water from the Nordic seas plunges 2.5 kilometers downward to the ocean floor. A waterfall 3 times the height of Angel Falls, happening right now, invisible beneath the surface of the sea. There are underwater forests of kelp that grow so thick the light can barely reach the bottom. Giant kelp can grow up to 60 centimeters in a single day, one of the fastest growing organisms on Earth. These kelp forests shelter hundreds of species, fish, otters, sea urchins, and more. A slow, green, swaying world beneath the waves. Seagrass meadows cover an area of roughly 300,000 square kilometers of the seafloor. They produce oxygen, trap carbon, stabilize sediment, and shelter the young of hundreds of marine species. A meadow underwater. Grass swaying in the current. Quiet and wide and endlessly green. Some deep-sea creatures live extraordinarily long lives. The Greenland shark can live for more than 500 years. One shark, studied in recent years, was estimated to be nearly 400 years old, born sometime around the year 1600. It was alive during the age of exploration. It has outlived empires. The ocean has its own seasons. As sunlight changes throughout the year, surface temperatures shift, ocean currents adjust, and massive blooms of phytoplankton rise and fall like green flowers on the sea. Spring brings the great bloom, a burst of microscopic life spreading across the surface of the ocean, feeding everything above and below. There are bacteria living in the rocks of the ocean floor, kilometers beneath the seafloor surface, in complete darkness, at extremely high pressure, with almost no energy. They survive by metabolizing hydrogen and carbon from the rock itself. They might be among the slowest living organisms on Earth, reproducing once every few hundred to few thousand years. Whale falls are one of the ocean's most extraordinary events. When a whale dies and sinks to the seafloor, its body becomes an ecosystem that can support hundreds of species for decades. First come the scavengers. Then come the bacteria and invertebrates. Then sulfur processing organisms. A single whale's body sustaining life for 50 years or more on the barren seafloor. The ocean is full of plastic, but it is also full of creatures that have evolved to live with extraordinary circumstances. The woodlouse of the deep, the sea cucumber, the vampire squid, these animals survive in conditions that would be impossible for almost anything else. Life in the ocean is ancient and stubborn and endlessly creative. The Pacific Ocean was named by Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan in 1520. His ships emerged from the stormy passage at the southern tip of South America and found calm, gentle waters ahead. He called it Mar Pacifico, the peaceful sea. He had never seen a more still ocean in his life. Dolphins sleep with one eye open. They rest one half of their brain at a time, keeping the other half alert. This is called unihemispheric sleep. Even while sleeping, a dolphin remains aware enough to breathe, to swim gently, to stay connected to the world. A half sleep, one eye closed, still moving, still present. Just like sea otters hold hands while they sleep so they don't drift apart. They float on their backs at the surface, wrapped in kelp for stability, and reach out to hold the paw of the otter beside them. Even in sleep, connection. Even at rest, reaching. Parrotfish create some of the world's most beautiful beaches. At night, they encase themselves in a cocoon of mucus and sleep inside it, a little sleeping bag they make from their own bodies. During the day, they bite off chunks of coral with their beak-like teeth, digest the algae, and excrete fine white sand. The white sand beaches of the tropics are, in many places, parrotfish droppings. Beautiful things from unexpected origins. Manatees are called sea cows, and the name is apt. They are large, gentle, slow-moving herbivores who graze on seagrass in warm, shallow waters. They don't seem to be in any particular hurry. They surface to breathe every few minutes, take a long, slow breath, and sink back down. Their resting heart rate is only 6 beats per minute. The narwhal's spiral tusk is actually an elongated tooth, a canine tooth to be precise, that grows through the upper lip of the male and can reach nearly 3 meters in length. It was once sold as the horn of a unicorn to medieval Europeans who believed it had magical properties. A creature so strange it was once thought to be myth. The ocean is home to the world's smallest fish, a type of goby from the reefs of the Indian Ocean that reaches a maximum length of about 8 millimeters, about the size of a grain of rice. It lives on the seafloor among the grains of sand, invisible unless you look very closely. The ocean has room for the enormous and the tiny alike. Deep beneath the surface of the Arabian Sea, there is a permanent oxygen minimum zone, a layer of water so low in oxygen that most creatures cannot survive there. And yet bacteria thrive. Everywhere the ocean seems uninhabitable, life finds a way to continue. Quietly. Persistently. The ocean has a layer called the thermocline, a boundary region between the warmer surface water and the colder deep water below. Sound waves get trapped and bounce along this layer, traveling enormous distances. In World War II, submarines used the thermocline to hide from sonar, knowing that sound couldn't easily pass through it. A hidden layer, a quiet corridor beneath the sea. Coral polyps are tiny animals, each one smaller than a grain of rice, that build the massive limestone structures we call coral reefs. They come out at night, extending their tiny tentacles to catch even tinier plankton drifting through the dark water. All that slow, patient, nighttime work, building something that lasts for centuries. There are deserts in the ocean. In the subtropical gyres, where the same water circulates slowly and receives little fresh input from currents or rivers, nutrients are so low that almost nothing grows. These ocean deserts are among the clearest, bluest water on Earth, beautiful and nearly empty. Blue silence. Seals can sleep underwater. They fall into a state called logging, floating motionless at the surface, or they dive down and let themselves sink slowly, sleeping as they descend, waking briefly to breathe, then drifting down again. Sleep and water mixed together. Descending and rising. Breathing and going back under. The coelacanth is a fish that was believed to be extinct for 65 million years until one was caught alive in 1938. It looks almost exactly like fossils from the age of dinosaurs. It lives in deep, dark caves and rarely comes near the surface. Ancient, unchanged, patient, beyond all reckoning. Bioluminescent plankton are responsible for what sailors sometimes call milky seas, vast stretches of the ocean that glow a continuous, soft white light in the dark. These events can cover thousands of square kilometers. Seen from the air, they look like the ocean itself is lit from within. A glowing sea. Calm and lit and enormous. The southern right whale migrates from Antarctic feeding grounds to warmer waters near South Africa and Argentina to give birth. The mothers and calves float slowly together in shallow, sheltered bays. The calves nurse and rest, rising to breathe, sinking back close to their mothers. Warm, safe, drifting. There is a place in the North Atlantic known as the Sargasso Sea, defined not by land on its borders, but by 4 ocean currents that surround it. Within this calm centre, vast mats of golden sargassum seaweed float in great drifts. It is a sea without shores, and it is one of the calmest places in the Atlantic. Calm, surrounded by motion. Stillness at the centre of the turning world. American eels travel thousands of miles to spawn in the Sargasso Sea. They are born there, drift as larvae across the Atlantic for years, grow to adulthood in fresh rivers and streams, and then one day turn and migrate all the way back to the place they were born, to spawn and to end. A full circle across an ocean. Life completing itself. Whale sharks are the largest fish on Earth, but they are filter feeders. They swim slowly through the water, mouths wide open, filtering tiny plankton and fish eggs. A creature the length of a school bus, feeding on things too small to see. Power and gentleness in one enormous body. Bioluminescence is not limited to plankton and fish. Some species of octopus, starfish, and even certain sharks can produce light. In the deep ocean, far below where sunlight ever reaches, creatures glow in blue and green and faint red. A dark world with its own soft lights, its own quiet way of being seen. The ocean is always changing at its edges. Coasts erode and build, cliffs crumble into the sea, new beaches form from deposited sand. Even solid land is slowly shaped by the ocean's patient pressure. Nothing is permanent at the edge of the sea. Everything is slowly becoming something else. In the mesopelagic zone, the twilight zone of the ocean between 200 and 1,000 meters deep, millions of creatures make a daily vertical migration. They rise toward the surface at night to feed, then sink back into the darkness at dawn. The largest migration on Earth, happening every single night, invisible from shore. At extreme depth, the water pressure compresses everything. A styrofoam cup sent down to the deepest parts of the ocean in a mesh bag comes back the size of a thimble, crushed by the weight of miles of water above it. The ocean remakes whatever enters it. The deep-sea dragonfish has transparent teeth, invisible in the dark water, and a long chin barbel tipped with a bioluminescent lure. It hunts by attracting prey with its glowing light, then catching them with teeth they couldn't even see. Even in the deepest dark, there is beauty. There is strategy. There is life going on. Some species of sea cucumber defend themselves by expelling their own internal organs. When threatened, they push out part of their respiratory system or intestines through their body wall. The predator is distracted by the organs. The sea cucumber slowly regenerates. Everything given away slowly grows back. The pufferfish creates elaborate sand mandalas on the ocean floor to attract a mate. A small fish, just a few inches long, spending days creating a perfectly symmetrical geometric design in the sand, then waiting at the center. An act of extraordinary patience and beauty, created to be seen, then washed away by the current. Giant squids were considered mythical for most of human history. They grow up to 13 meters long. For centuries, sailors reported seeing them, and no one believed. Now we know they're real, living in the deep ocean, their enormous eyes, the largest of any animal, scanning the dark for sperm whales, their primary predator. A myth become real. Some sea anemones can live for centuries, slowly cloning themselves. They are essentially immortal unless killed by disease or predators. A soft-bodied creature attached to a rock, waving its tentacles in the current for hundreds of years. Still here, still waving. The mimic octopus can imitate the appearance and behavior of more than 15 other marine species, including lionfish, flatfish, and sea snakes, all in real time. Watching its environment, shifting, adapting, becoming what the moment requires. There is a lake within the ocean. In the Gulf of Mexico, a pool of dense, brine-saturated water sits on the seafloor like a still, shimmering lake within the sea. It has its own shoreline, its own surface, its own gentle waves. Called a brine pool, it is so salty and toxic that most sea creatures die when they enter it. But mussels and specialized bacteria thrive at its edges. A world within a world. A sea inside the sea. The ocean connects everything. Every river eventually reaches the sea. Every drop of rain that falls on land finds its way eventually through streams and rivers and groundwater to the ocean. And from the ocean, water evaporates back into clouds which drift over land and fall as rain again. The same water, moving in a circle that never stops. The same drop that fell on a mountain 10,000 years ago may be in the ocean tonight. Moonfish, also called opa, are the only fully warm-blooded fish in the ocean. They generate body heat by flapping their pectoral fins continuously, warming their blood as it circulates. In the cold, deep water where they live, they carry their own warmth with them. A warm heart, moving through cold, dark water. The color turquoise, that soft blue-green of shallow, tropical water, comes from the way light passes through water that sits above a sandy floor. The sand reflects the light back up through the water, giving it that lit-from-within quality. Shallow water, lit from below, like a lamp, like a quiet dream. Female elephant seals spend 8 months at sea without ever coming ashore. They dive repeatedly, sometimes to depths of 500 meters, holding their breath for up to 20 minutes at a time. They sleep between dives, sinking slowly in a spiral, drifting down for a few minutes, then rising back to the surface without ever fully waking. They sleep as they fall. They rise as they breathe, over and over in the dark sea for months. Seahorses are one of the only species on Earth where the male carries the young. The female deposits her eggs into the male's pouch. He carries them, nourishes them, and gives birth. A small, slow, bony creature, hovering in the seagrass, doing the quiet work of bringing life into the world. The sound of the ocean that you hear in a shell held to your ear is not the ocean. It is the ambient sound of the room around you, your breath, the hum of the air, reflected back by the curved shell's interior. The ocean you hear was always inside the room with you. Always there, in the air. At the very surface of the ocean, the top fraction of a millimeter, thinner than a human hair, there is a special layer called the sea surface microlayer. It contains bacteria, films of organic material, and microscopic life not found anywhere else. A world that exists only at the exact threshold between ocean and sky, neither fully in one nor the other. A between place. Many marine animals navigate by the stars. Sea turtles hatching on beaches crawl toward the brightest part of the horizon, which, on a natural beach, is the reflection of the stars and moon on the sea. They find their way by light. Ancient light. The stars guiding them home to the water. The sound a snapping shrimp makes, a tiny crustacean no bigger than a finger, is one of the loudest sounds in the ocean. By snapping its claw, it creates a cavitation bubble that collapses with a snap loud enough to stun prey. Schools of snapping shrimp create a crackling sound underwater that can interfere with sonar. A small creature making enormous noise and then going quiet again. If you stood at the bottom of the ocean and looked up, you would see a faint shimmer of blue light above you, the last of the sunlight filtering down from the surface, far away. Below you, total darkness. Above you, the faintest memory of light. Blue, pale, distant, still there. The ocean is patient. It was here long before the first human being stood on a beach and looked out at it with wonder. It will be here long after we are gone. Right now, it is breathing, waves rising and falling, tides ebbing and flowing, the great currents moving slowly in their loops around the globe. It is not waiting for anything. It is not hurrying anywhere. It is simply being. The way the ocean has always been. The ocean is never truly silent. Even in the deepest, most remote trenches there is sound, the distant rumble of earthquakes, the groaning of shifting plates, the faint clicks of creatures moving through total darkness. The ocean hums at frequencies too low for human ears. A sound we cannot hear, but that has been there all along. The shoreline is one of the most constantly changing places on Earth. Every wave that arrives moves sand, pebbles, and shell fragments. Sometimes just a little, sometimes a great deal. A beach you visited as a child is not the same beach today. The ocean is always rearranging itself at the edges. The continental shelf is the shallow, gently sloping area of seafloor that extends from the coastline before dropping steeply into the deep ocean. Most of the ocean's fish live here, in the warm, light-filled shallows above the shelf. It is the most productive part of the sea, a sunlit, bustling, fertile place just beyond the shore. Sea glass, those smooth, frosted pieces of glass found on beaches, begins as broken bottles and jars. Tumbled by waves and sand for decades, sometimes for a century or more, the sharp edges soften and the surface frosts over. The ocean takes something broken and sharp and slowly, patiently makes it gentle and beautiful. The smell of the ocean, that particular salty, briny, slightly wild smell, comes largely from a compound called dimethyl sulfide, produced by marine algae and bacteria as they decompose. It drifts into the air above the sea and travels far inland. People who grew up near the coast sometimes say that smell caught on a wind far from the sea can stop them entirely. A smell that carries you home. Seawater is slightly denser than fresh water, just enough that things float a little more easily in it. A ship designed for ocean travel will sit just slightly higher in the water when it moves from a freshwater river into the open sea. The salt water holds it up just a little more without being asked. There are places on Earth where the ocean meets massive freshwater rivers and they don't immediately mix. The Amazon River pushes so much fresh water into the Atlantic that you can observe a visible boundary, a line where dark river water meets the blue-green sea, stretching for miles offshore. Two worlds, side by side, taking their time to become one. Fog over the ocean forms when warm, moist air passes over cold water. The air cools, the moisture condenses, and a soft, grey veil appears at the surface of the sea. Some coastal cities, San Francisco for instance, are famous for their fogs, which roll in from the cold Pacific, like something very slow and very quiet coming to visit. The intertidal zone, the strip of shore between high tide and low tide, is one of the most dynamic habitats on Earth. Creatures living there must survive being submerged, then exposed, then submerged again. twice a day. Barnacles, mussels, anemones and crabs have all adapted to this in-between life. Never fully in the sea, never fully out of it. Sand is mostly made of tiny fragments of rock and mineral worn down over millions of years by rivers, glaciers, and waves. Some sand is made of pulverized coral and shell. Some black sand beaches are made of volcanic basalt. Each beach has its own particular sand, its own texture, color, and origin story. Every grain of sand on every beach is an ancient thing. Sunlight can only penetrate the ocean to a depth of about 200 meters, roughly 600 feet. Below that, called the twilight zone, there is only dim blue. Below 1,000 meters, there is no sunlight at all. Most of the ocean by volume exists in permanent darkness. A vast, dark world, peaceful, cold, and still. The clear blue color of the open ocean is sometimes called ocean desert blue, a sign that there is very little life in that particular patch of water. The richest, most productive ocean water is often greenish, cloudy with phytoplankton. Murky and green means alive. Deep and blue means vast and quiet. Bioluminescent bays exist in a handful of places around the world: Puerto Rico, Jamaica, the Maldives, where concentrations of glowing plankton are so high that the water itself seems lit from within at night. Paddle through it, and your hand trails blue-green fire. Every ripple glows. A dark bay full of cold light. The midnight zone, below 1,000 meters, receives no sunlight whatsoever, yet it teems with life. Creatures there have evolved extraordinary adaptations, enormous eyes to catch the faintest bioluminescent glow, or no eyes at all and heightened senses of vibration and smell. The dark is not empty. It is simply a different kind of full. Some fish in the deep sea have evolved completely transparent bodies. You can look through them, see their organs, their spine, their beating heart. In a world where the only light is the light you make yourself, being invisible may be the safest thing of all. Transparency as shelter. Openness as protection. Photophores are light-producing organs found on many deep-sea fish and squid. They can produce patterns of light on the creature's belly that match the faint light filtering down from above, making the animal nearly invisible to predators looking up from below. Camouflage made of light. Hiding by shining. The anglerfish's lure, the glowing appendage that dangles in front of its face, is actually a colony of bioluminescent bacteria living inside a specialized structure. The fish didn't evolve its own light. It invited bacteria in and gave them a home, and in return they glow. A partnership in the dark. Some deep-sea creatures have red coloring, and in the depths, red is effectively invisible. There is so little red wavelength light that far below the surface that a red animal appears black, blending into the surrounding darkness. Red is the color of hiding in the deep ocean. The barrel-eye fish has a transparent head. Its large, tubular eyes point upward through the clear dome of its skull, scanning for the silhouettes of prey above. It can rotate those eyes forward when needed. A fish that sees through its own face. A fish built to look toward the light. At the very surface of the sea on a calm, clear night, the stars reflect so perfectly that a sailor can seem to be floating in the middle of the sky. Stars above, stars below. No horizon. Just the quiet sensation of being surrounded by light and space and nothing pressing in from any direction at all. Horseshoe crabs are among the most ancient animals on Earth. They have barely changed in nearly 450 million years. Their blue blood, which contains a compound used in medical testing worldwide, has been helping protect living creatures for longer than the dinosaurs existed. Ancient, blue-blooded, and still here. Sea sponges have no brain, no nervous system, no muscles, and no organs. They are among the simplest multicellular animals alive. They draw water through their porous bodies, filter out tiny food particles, and release the clean water back into the sea. Simple. Essential. Quietly cleaning the water for millions of years. Manta rays are among the most graceful creatures in the ocean. With wingspans that can reach 7 meters, they glide through the water by gently flapping their great pectoral fins, like wings, in slow motion. They sometimes leap fully out of the sea, turning slowly in the air before landing with a great, flat splash. Flying briefly, then returning. The ocean has its own postal service of a kind. Marine scientists release drift cards and bottles to study ocean currents. Some of these messages take years to be found, washed up on distant shores thousands of miles from where they were released. A message sent to the sea, arriving where the current decides. The pistol shrimp is one of the fastest creatures in the ocean relative to its size. By snapping its claws shut with extraordinary speed, it creates a cavitation bubble that collapses into a jet of water, traveling at nearly 100 kilometers per hour, enough to stun or kill prey. A shrimp, smaller than your thumb, with the speed of a sports car in its claw. Nudibranchs are small sea slugs that come in extraordinary colors, vivid pinks, electric blues, deep oranges, spotted whites, and are among the most beautiful creatures in the sea. They have no shell. Their bright colors warn predators that they are toxic. Beauty, in this case, is a warning. And also, somehow, still beautiful. Sea stars and starfish can regenerate lost arms. Some species can regenerate an entirely new body from a single detached arm. The lost arm, containing a fragment of the central disc, will slowly, over weeks and months, grow the rest of itself back. Slow, quiet, becoming whole again. The ocean has rivers of sand. Underwater sand rivers called turbidity currents can flow swiftly down continental slopes, carrying enormous amounts of sediment into the deep ocean basins. They have been known to break submarine cables laid along the seafloor. A river of sand, invisible, in the deep ocean, moving fast and quiet. Beluga whales are sometimes called the canaries of the sea. They are extraordinarily vocal, chirping, clicking, whistling, and trilling in a repertoire so varied it can sound almost like conversation. They are highly social, living in pods that vocalize together. A sea full of singing just below the surface. The sea cucumber, a soft, elongated creature related to starfish, moves by hydraulic pressure, slowly expanding and contracting fluid within its body. It creeps along the ocean floor at a pace that can barely be detected, grazing on detritus and sediment. It has no particular destination and no hurry getting anywhere. Slow. Present. Content. The moon doesn't just pull on the ocean, it pulls on everything, including the solid rock of the earth. The land beneath your feet rises and falls by about 30 centimeters twice a day in response to the same tidal force that moves the seas. You are already riding a tide. You just can't feel it. Rip currents are not dangerous because they pull swimmers under. They flow outward, parallel to, or away from, the shore. The danger is in fighting them. Swimmers who relax, float, and angle across the current rather than against it are carried safely to the side. Sometimes survival is about not fighting, about going sideways instead of struggling straight ahead. The Coriolis effect, caused by the Earth's rotation, influences the direction that ocean currents and weather systems rotate. In the northern hemisphere, they rotate clockwise. In the southern hemisphere, counterclockwise. The spinning of the Earth beneath the ocean shaping the direction of everything that flows. The Drake Passage between the southern tip of South America and Antarctica is one of the most powerful ocean channels on Earth. The Antarctic Circumpolar Current flows through it, the world's strongest ocean current carrying 600 times the flow of the Amazon River. 600 Amazons worth of water moving through one passage right now. Submarine landslides, called turbidites, can be among the largest mass movements on Earth. A single underwater landslide can displace hundreds of cubic kilometers of sediment in minutes, sending it cascading down the continental slope and across the ocean floor. The seafloor is not always still. It occasionally shifts massively and settles again. Polar seas are among the most productive in the world. The cold water holds more dissolved oxygen than warm water, and upwelling currents bring nutrients from the deep. Antarctic waters in summer bloom with phytoplankton that sustain vast food webs, krill, penguins, whales, seals, all fed by cold, oxygen-rich, dark water made bright by the summer sun. The Mediterranean Sea is nearly landlocked. It loses more water to evaporation than it receives from rivers and rain. To make up the difference, water flows in constantly from the Atlantic through the Strait of Gibraltar, an underwater river of cooler, less salty water flowing in along the bottom, while warmer, saltier Mediterranean water flows out at the surface. Two rivers sharing one narrow passage. In the Bahamas, there are underwater caves called blue holes, deep, circular shafts that drop straight down into the seafloor and connect to ancient cave systems. Some are hundreds of meters deep. The water inside is often layered, fresh water on top, salt water below, and where they meet, a thin haze hangs in the water like a cloud. A door in the seafloor leading to another world. The Labrador Current carries cold water from the Arctic South along the coast of North America. It collides with the warm Gulf Stream in a boundary called the North Wall, a line in the ocean where cold and warm meet, and where dense fog often forms. Two currents, a boundary, where things meet and blur. Microplastics, tiny particles of degraded plastic, are now found in every part of the ocean from the surface to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. They are also found in the bodies of creatures at every level of the food chain. And yet the ocean continues. The currents keep moving. The tides still come. It carries its burdens the way it always has, without stopping. Some rocks on the ocean floor contain magnetite crystals that recorded the direction of the Earth's magnetic field at the time they formed. As the seafloor spread outward from mid-ocean ridges over millions of years, these magnetic stripes were laid down, a perfect record of how the Earth's poles have reversed hundreds of times throughout history. The ocean floor is a library, written in stone and magnetism. The ocean has shaped human history as profoundly as any land feature. Civilizations rose along coasts because the sea offered food, travel, and trade. Every major ancient culture that lived near water left evidence of their relationship with it in boats, in myths, in the bones of the fish they ate. We have always lived with the ocean. It has always shaped who we are. Foraminifera, tiny shelled organisms that have existed for over 500 million years, sink to the seafloor when they die, building up layers of chalky sediment. The white cliffs of Dover in England are made almost entirely of foraminifera shells compressed into chalk over millions of years. A famous landmark, made of ancient tiny lives. Deep-sea sediment cores pulled from the ocean floor contain a record of every major volcanic eruption, asteroid impact, and climate shift over hundreds of millions of years. Each layer of sediment is a chapter. Scientists can read the deep history of the planet the way you might read the rings inside a tree, slowly, with patience, finding time in layers. The ocean has survived 5 mass extinction events that wiped out most life on land. Each time, life in the sea was damaged, sometimes severely, but it recovered. The ocean itself persisted. The currents kept moving. And slowly, life returned in new forms. The ocean has outlasted catastrophe more than once. Salt domes, structures where ancient deposits of salt have been pushed upward through layers of rock, exist beneath parts of the ocean floor in the Gulf of Mexico. These domes can form oil and gas traps, and some rise so close to the surface that they create mounds on the seafloor. Ancient salt, pushing slowly upward through stone. The first life on Earth almost certainly arose in the ocean, likely more than 3.5 billion years ago. Single-celled organisms existing in warm seas, slowly diversifying over vast stretches of time. Every living thing on Earth today, every human being, every bird, every tree, is descended from a creature that once lived in the sea. Stromatolites are layered structures built by communities of cyanobacteria, among the earliest life forms on Earth. They still exist in a few places today, notably in Shark Bay, Australia. They grow slowly, just a millimetre or two per year. Ancient organisms, still building, still living, in warm, shallow water. Still here. The ocean holds the world's largest living structure. The Great Barrier Reef stretches more than 2,300 kilometres along the coast of Australia and is visible from space. It is home to more than 9,000 species. And it is, at its heart, a community of tiny animals, coral polyps, building their slow and patient city grain by grain, year by year. Some shells spiral according to the Fibonacci sequence, the same mathematical pattern found in sunflower seeds, pine cones, and galaxies. The nautilus, a creature that has barely changed in 500 million years, builds its shell in a perfect logarithmic spiral. Mathematics and nature agreeing quietly in the ocean for 500 million years. Whales sing. Humpback whales produce complex songs, sequences of sounds that can last for hours, with themes and variations that evolve across an entire ocean population over months and years. A new phrase appears in one whale's song, and within a season, whales thousands of miles away are singing it too. Music traveling across an ocean, shared without instruction. Dolphins have been observed giving each other names, using unique whistles that function as identifiers for each individual. When they whistle each other's name, the named dolphin responds. They call to each other across the water. They know who is who. A community with names and a sea to carry them in. Orcapods have distinct dialects. Different family groups produce different vocalizations, patterns of clicks and whistles that are unique to that lineage. Orca culture is passed from mothers to calves and persists for generations. A language, carried forward through time. Mother to child, in the sea. The bowhead whale may be the longest-lived mammal on Earth. Some individuals have been found with harpoon heads from the 19th century embedded in their bodies, weapons that failed to kill them over 100 years ago. A whale born in the 1800s, still alive, still swimming, still breathing. Grey whales undertake one of the longest migrations of any mammal, up to 20,000 kilometers round trip between their Arctic feeding grounds and Mexican breeding lagoons. Mothers and calves make the return journey together, the calf growing stronger with every day of travel. A long, slow journey, done together, in the grey-green sea. Walruses can sleep in the water. They inflate a special throat pouch that acts like a built-in life vest, keeping their head above the surface while the rest of their body floats below. They drift, suspended, asleep in the cold Arctic Sea, held up by their own body, sleeping in the ocean, trusting the water to hold them. The dugong, A large marine mammal related to the manatee grazes on seagrass meadows in warm coastal waters. It moves slowly along the bottom, leaving furrows in the sediment where it has grazed. Quiet, large, unhurried, leaving only gentle traces of where it has been. Whale sharks are known to approach boats and divers without aggression. Snorkelers have described the experience of swimming alongside one, this enormous, slow, spotted animal filtering the water for plankton, entirely unconcerned, as one of the most peaceful experiences in nature. Something vast, paying you no mind. Moving through your world as through water. Sperm whales sleep vertically. Groups of them have been photographed floating just below the surface, heads pointing upward, bodies hanging in the water like buoys, perfectly still. They appear to sleep in short bursts, just 10 to 15 minutes at a time, drifting together in a quiet cluster. A family, upright, sleeping in the sea. The ocean provides most of the water vapor that becomes rain. When the sun heats the ocean surface, water evaporates into the atmosphere and eventually falls as rain on land, filling rivers, nourishing forests, and collecting in aquifers. The rain that falls on you is ocean water returned. The ocean is still there, inside every raindrop. Sea urchins can live for more than 200 years. Scientists determine their age by counting growth rings in their spines and jaws. A sea urchin the size of a grapefruit, moving slowly across a reef, may have been doing so since before your grandparents were born. Slow, spiny, enduring. The clownfish never leaves its anemone. It lives its entire life within the swaying tentacles of that one creature, protected by the anemone's sting, and in turn keeping the anemone clean and free of parasites. A whole life spent in one place, tending the thing that shelters you. Hermit crabs don't grow their own shells. They find empty shells left by other mollusks and move in. As they grow, they must find larger shells and move again. Sometimes hermit crabs gather in groups and exchange shells in a coordinated chain, each one moving into the next larger shell in turn. A community swap. An orderly, quiet exchange. Hagfish produce an extraordinary defensive slime. When threatened, they release a gel-like substance that expands rapidly in water, clogging the gills of any fish that tries to bite them. A hagfish can fill a bucket with slime in seconds. The predator retreats, gagging. The hagfish slips free. Soft. Unlikely. Effective. Brine shrimp, the famous sea monkeys sold in novelty kits, can survive in a state of suspended animation called cryptobiosis. Their eggs can remain dormant for decades, completely dried out, with no detectable metabolic activity. Add water, and they hatch. Life paused. Waiting patiently for the right conditions. The peacock mantis shrimp can punch with the force of a bullet. It strikes with club-like appendages at speeds of over 80 kilometers per hour, creating cavitation bubbles that generate a second shock wave, even if the first punch misses. It can break aquarium glass. It weighs about 100 grams. Extraordinary power in a very small package. Some sharks have to keep swimming to breathe. Ram ventilators, like the great white shark and the mako, must move forward constantly to push water over their gills. They cannot stop. They cannot rest on the bottom. They have been moving through the ocean without pause their entire lives. Perpetual motion in the dark water. The Japanese spider crab is the largest arthropod on Earth, with a leg span that can reach nearly 4 meters. It lives on the deep sea floor off the coast of Japan, moving slowly across the sand in the dark. Ancient in appearance, unhurried, enormous and quiet in the cold deep. Octopuses dream. During sleep, they have been observed changing color rapidly, flashing across their bodies in patterns that suggest they may be reliving experiences from the day. A small octopus in its den in the dark, somewhere in the ocean, dreaming in color. Right now. Somewhere. The chambered nautilus, that ancient, spiral-shelled creature, is what's known as a living fossil. It has barely changed for 500 million years. It spends its days in the deep water and rises toward the surface at night to feed. Down in the day. Up in the dark. It has lived by this rhythm, night after night, for longer than our entire family tree. Deep-sea fish often have no swim bladder, the gas-filled organ that helps shallower fish control their buoyancy. At extreme depths, the pressure would collapse a gas-filled organ. Instead, many deep-sea creatures use oily tissues or watery flesh to achieve neutral buoyancy, neither rising nor sinking. Simply hanging, still, suspended in the dark. Simply hanging, still. The midnight zone of the ocean is, by volume, the largest habitat on Earth. It is larger than all forests, grasslands, and freshwater habitats combined. And almost nothing from the surface reaches it. No light. Very little food. Just the slow rain of organic particles drifting down from above, called marine snow, a constant, slow fall of nourishment through the dark. Some fish in the deep ocean have evolved to produce counter-illumination, bioluminescent light on their bellies that exactly matches the faint light filtering down from the surface above. Seen from below, they are invisible, their outline erased by their own gentle glow. They hide by shining. The ocean floor of the abyssal plain, the vast, flat region at depths of 3 to 6 kilometers, covers more of Earth's surface than all continents combined. It is a wide, cold, nearly featureless plain of sediment, almost entirely in the dark. The largest landscape on Earth and one of the least visited places in the known universe. The largest landscape, least visited. In some parts of the deep ocean, the water is so still that sediment takes thousands of years to settle. A layer of sediment a centimeter thick might represent 50,000 years of history. In those places, time moves so slowly, it barely moves at all. Things accumulate. Things settle with extraordinary patience. The Titanic is slowly being consumed by bacteria. The ship, which sank in 1912, sits 2.5 miles below the surface of the North Atlantic. Bacteria are eating the iron of its hull, leaving stalactite-like formations called rusticles dangling from the structure. In a few centuries, the ship will be gone entirely. The ocean slowly reclaims everything placed inside it. There are hydrothermal vent communities where the food chain begins not with sunlight and plants, but with chemosynthetic bacteria that convert hydrogen sulfide into energy. These entire ecosystems, tube worms, blind shrimp, pale crabs, run entirely on chemistry. On Earth's internal heat. Not sunlight, not the surface. Something older. Whale bones on the seafloor provide habitat for hundreds of species long after the whale's soft tissue is gone. Scientists have found bone-eating worms called osedacs, meaning bone devourer, drilling into whale bones and absorbing the fats and proteins inside. The whale provides, even in its last form. Even as bone. Volcanic islands rise from the sea when underwater volcanoes build up enough lava to break the surface. Hawaii began as a seamount, an underwater volcano, and built itself up, eruption by eruption over millions of years until it broke the surface and became an island. Land made from the ocean floor. Rising slowly, becoming something above. In the Arctic Ocean in winter, the sea ice that forms creates brine channels, tiny passages within the ice where extremely salty, very cold water flows. Inside these channels, ice algae grow, and under ice amphipods graze on them, and Arctic cod eat those. An entire food chain, inside the ice, in the dark, in winter, while the ocean freezes overhead. The sound of a blue whale, a low, rumbling call below the range of human hearing, can travel more than 1,000 miles through the ocean. Right now, somewhere in the deep ocean, a blue whale is calling. The sound is moving through the water, slowly, in every direction, a voice that the whole ocean can carry. Many species of fish can detect the Earth's magnetic field and use it to navigate. Salmon, for example, imprint on the specific magnetic signature of the river mouth where they were born, a unique geomagnetic address that they carry with them across the ocean and use to navigate home years later, guided by a field they cannot see, returning to a place held inside them all along. The deep scattering layer is a vast community of creatures, fish, squid, shrimp, that rises toward the surface at night and descends again at dawn. This layer is so dense it reflects sonar signals, and early oceanographers, confused by their instruments, thought they had discovered an unknown layer of seafloor, only to realize it was moving. A living layer. Rising. Falling. Breathing. Sea butterflies, pteropods, are tiny swimming sea snails that drift through the open ocean, propelling themselves with wing-like lobes. They are so small and transparent they are nearly invisible. They drift through the water like snowflakes through air, down, up, sideways, moved by currents too faint to name. The ocean stores heat from the sun not just at the surface but deep within. During El Niño events, when warm water spreads across the tropical Pacific, that heat was stored over years and then released all at once. The ocean is a slow keeper of warmth, absorbing it quietly over time, releasing it on its own schedule according to its own rhythms. Thresher sharks use their long, scythe-like tails to stun prey by whipping the water with extraordinary speed, generating a shockwave that stuns small fish. The tail can be as long as the shark's body itself. A long, slow-moving animal capable of a single moment of tremendous speed. Still. And then, suddenly fast. And still again. The ocean has helped regulate Earth's temperature for billions of years. When carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere rise, the ocean absorbs more of it. When they fall, the ocean releases some back. A slow, patient thermostat for the planet. Always adjusting. Always balancing. Over deep geological time. Polar bears are classified as marine mammals. They spend so much of their lives on sea ice and in the Arctic Ocean, swimming between ice flows for hundreds of kilometers, that they belong, officially, to the sea. A bear, made for the cold ocean, moving through icy water, at home in the in-between. The ocean is full of invisible mountains called seamounts, underwater peaks that rise steeply from the abyssal plain but never reach the surface. There are tens of thousands of them. Each one creates an upwelling of nutrients that supports dense communities of marine life. Invisible peaks, sustaining invisible worlds, all across the dark ocean floor. The North Star is visible from every point in the Northern Hemisphere, and sailors used it for thousands of years to navigate at sea. On a clear night in open ocean with no land in sight, the star was the one fixed point in a turning world. Constant. Clear. A light that told you where north was, so you always knew where you were. A fixed point in all that turning. There is a point in the Southern Ocean called Point Nemo that is the most remote location on Earth. It lies roughly 2,600 kilometers from any coastline in any direction. When the International Space Station passes overhead, the astronauts aboard it are actually closer to Point Nemo than any human being on land. A place so far from shore that the nearest people are in orbit. At sunrise and sunset, looking out to sea on a very clear day, you may sometimes glimpse the green flash, a brief emerald shimmer of light that appears at the very moment the sun dips below the horizon. It is caused by the refraction of light through the atmosphere and lasts only a second or two. Sailors have chased it for centuries. A second of green light, gone before you're sure you saw it. The ocean smells different in different places and at different times. Near a productive estuary, it smells of life and mud and growth. In the open tropical sea, it smells almost of nothing, clean and faint and wide. After a storm, it smells electric. On a calm evening close to shore, it smells like everything you have ever loved about being near the water. There are rivers of cold water moving deep within the ocean right now, currents that began hundreds of years ago in the cold polar seas, where dense water sank and began a journey that will last for centuries. The water moving in the deep ocean today was once at the surface. It breathed the same air. Then it sank and began its long, slow journey in the dark. Manatees have been known to approach sleeping or still divers and gently nudge them, apparently curious. They are large, slow, peaceful animals with poor eyesight and no natural fear of humans. A manatee bumping slowly into something still in the water, investigating without hurry whatever strange, quiet creature this might be. Gentle curiosity. In warm, green shallows. The sea has its own kind of snow, marine snow, particles of organic material, the remains of creatures, the waste of the living, falls continuously through the water column from the surface toward the deep. It falls slowly, always falling. A constant, quiet, downward drift of the once living, feeding the creatures below. Dolphins have been observed playing in the bow waves of ships, riding the pressure wave created by the hull moving through water, surfing without effort, carried forward by the energy of something much larger passing through their world. Joy, perhaps. Or simply, the pleasure of moving fast without working, carried by something else entirely. Coral spawning happens once a year on a few nights after the full moon, when entire reef systems release clouds of eggs and sperm simultaneously. The water fills with pink and white bundles of life rising slowly toward the surface. The timing is governed by the lunar cycle, the water temperature, and the length of the day, all of it aligning precisely once a year in the dark. Sea otters, when they rest, sometimes wrap themselves loosely in kelp to keep from drifting while they sleep. The kelp, rooted to the ocean floor, becomes an anchor, holding the soft, sleeping animal in place while the ocean moves around it. Held gently, by something rooted, by something that reaches down to the earth below. Right now, the ocean is breathing. Waves are forming somewhere in the middle of the Pacific from winds that have been blowing for days. They are traveling toward a shore they've never touched. Deep below, a cold current is moving through the dark toward a distant upwelling that will bring it back to light. A fish is drifting in the midnight zone, neither rising nor sinking. A whale is somewhere between a breath and a dive. The ocean is so vast that if you stood on a ship in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and looked in every direction, you would see nothing but water all the way to the horizon, in every direction for hundreds of miles. A complete circle of sea. No land. No interruption. Just the curve of the earth and water meeting sky. Tidal pools are small, rocky pools left behind when the tide goes out. They are some of the most densely inhabited places on Earth by area. Sea stars, anemones, hermit crabs, tiny fish, snails, and sea urchins all share these shallow pools, waiting for the tide to return. A whole world contained in a few square feet of rock and cold water. Estuaries, where rivers meet the sea, are among the most productive ecosystems on the planet. The mixing of fresh and salt water creates nutrient-rich conditions that support extraordinary diversity. Many of the world's fish species begin their lives in estuaries sheltered in the reeds and shallows before moving out to sea. The colour of a shallow tropical lagoon, that impossibly bright turquoise, is partly created by the white sand and coral on the bottom, reflecting sunlight back up through just a few meters of water. The shallower and cleaner the water, the brighter that colour. A colour so vivid it looks invented. It is entirely natural. Mangrove forests grow at the edge of the sea in tropical coastlines, their tangled roots reaching into the salt water. They protect coastlines from storms, filter the water, and provide nursery habitat for hundreds of marine species. Their roots trap sediment and slowly, over time, build new land at the edge of the sea, growing the shore quietly, year by year. The sound of waves breaking on a shore is one of the most universally calming sounds known to human beings. Studies have found that it slows breathing, reduces cortisol, and lowers heart rate within minutes of hearing it. It is not only beautiful, it is physiologically soothing. The ocean has always known this. It has been offering the sound freely to anyone who comes close. Salt marshes, flat, grassy wetlands flooded by the tides, are among the most carbon-rich ecosystems on Earth. The dense, waterlogged soil traps organic material and holds it for centuries. A seemingly unremarkable stretch of grass at the edge of the sea, quietly sequestering more carbon per acre than most forests, doing vital work in silence. Sea caves form where waves pound relentlessly at cliff faces for thousands of years, exploiting cracks in the rock and slowly hollowing them out. Some sea caves extend far inland, filling with seawater at high tide. Inside them, the sound of the sea is amplified, deep booms and hisses, and the suck and rush of water filling stone. The ocean making music in the rock. The sea floor at the edge of the continental shelf drops sharply in what is called the continental slope, a vast underwater cliff that in some places descends thousands of meters. At the top of this slope, the light-filled shallow sea ends and the deep, dark ocean begins. It is one of the most dramatic transitions in nature, and almost no one has seen it. Abalone are large sea snails with iridescent shells lined with mother-of-pearl, a shimmering surface of layered calcium carbonate that reflects light in shifting colors of blue, green, and pink. They cling to rocks in the surge zone, grazing on algae. Patient, anchored, beautiful inside. Flying fish can glide above the surface of the ocean for distances of up to 200 meters. They build speed underwater, then burst through the surface and spread their enlarged pectoral fins like wings, gliding on the updraft just above the waves. Brief flights, returned each time to the sea. The sailfish is considered the fastest fish in the ocean, capable of reaching speeds of up to 110 kilometers per hour in short bursts. It uses its long, spear-like bill to slash through schools of fish, stunning them. speed, and then stillness, burst, and then drift. Leatherback sea turtles are the largest turtles on Earth and the most widely traveled reptiles. They cross entire ocean basins, diving to depths of over 1,000 meters, deeper than any other turtle, in search of jellyfish. Ancient, enormous, and always moving across the wide blue world. All the Portuguese man-o'-war is not a single animal. It is a siphonophore, a colonial organism made up of many individual creatures called zooids, each specialized for a different function. Some form the float, some the tentacles, some digest food, some reproduce. A colony traveling together as one, each part doing its one thing. Together, alive. Whale sharks are filter feeders that can process more than 6,000 litres of water per hour through their massive mouths, extracting tiny plankton, fish eggs, and small crustaceans. They move through the ocean with their mouths slightly open, taking in the sea, keeping only what they need, releasing the rest. Always passing through. Always filtering. Ocean whitefish can change sex. Many species of fish, including wrasses, parrotfish, and gobies, are capable of changing from female to male or male to female as circumstances require. The ocean is flexible about such things. Life there finds a way. The remora fish attaches itself to sharks, rays, and large fish using a modified dorsal fin that functions as a suction cup. It feeds on the host's parasites and leftover scraps of food. In return, it causes no harm. A hitchhiker that cleans as it rides. A quiet arrangement. Neither one asking much of the other. Some species of coral can move very, very slowly. Certain free-living corals can right themselves when overturned and creep across the sediment using their tentacles. It takes hours or days to move even a centimeter. But they move. Slowly, the coral goes where it needs to go. Seahorses are the only fish species in which the male becomes pregnant. The female deposits eggs into a specialized pouch on the male's body, where he fertilizes them and carries them until they are born, releasing tiny, perfect seahorses into the water in clouds of dozens or hundreds at once. Tuna are warm-blooded in a partial sense. They retain heat generated by their muscles, keeping their core body temperature above that of the surrounding water. This allows them to swim in cold, deep water and to sustain high speeds. Warm inside the cold ocean, carrying their own heat with them wherever they go. The immortal jellyfish, Turritopsis doheny, is capable of reverting to its juvenile polyp stage after reaching adulthood, effectively restarting its life cycle. Under stress or injury, it transforms backward in time, becoming young again. Scientists believe it can repeat this process indefinitely. A creature that, under the right conditions, does not have to end. Sea slugs, called solar-powered nudibranchs, can incorporate chloroplasts from the algae they eat into their own tissues and photosynthesize sunlight, functioning temporarily like plants. An animal that eats a plant and keeps part of it alive inside itself, using it to make energy from light. borrowing another creature's gift. The pelican eel of the deep sea has a mouth that can open wide enough to swallow prey much larger than itself. Its stomach stretches to accommodate whatever it catches. It is a creature built for the unpredictability of the deep ocean, where meals are rare and must be taken when they come. Patient in the dark, prepared for what arrives. Sea lions are among the most agile marine mammals. Underwater, they somersault, spiral, and glide with a fluid ease that seems effortless. On land, they are awkward and slow. The water is their true element, the place where they become most fully themselves. Each of us has a place where we become most fully ourselves. Cuttlefish have the most sophisticated camouflage of any animal on Earth. Using chromatophores, pigment cells, and iridophores, light-reflecting cells, in their skin, they can change colour, pattern, and texture in under a second. And they are colourblind. They produce precise colour mimicry without being able to see the colours they are matching. Something precise and beautiful, achieved without fully understanding how. The cone snail moves slowly across the seafloor, appearing harmless. But it hunts by firing a hollow, harpoon-like tooth filled with a complex cocktail of venom, one of the most sophisticated chemical weapons in nature. One of the slowest moving animals in the sea. One of the most effective hunters. Slowness is not weakness. Patience is not passivity. Stargazer fish bury themselves in sand with only their upward-facing eyes and mouths exposed. They wait, perfectly still, for prey to swim overhead. Then they lunge upward in a fraction of a second. They can remain buried and motionless for hours. Absolute stillness. And then one sudden, decisive moment. And then stillness again. The giant clam can live for more than 100 years, growing slowly over decades, its fleshy mantle shimmering with iridescent blues and greens. Inside its shell, it farms algae in its tissues, supplementing what it filter feeds from the water. Ancient, colourful, self-sufficient, rooted in place and perfectly content. Lobsters don't seem to age in the conventional sense. Older lobsters appear to be as fertile and vigorous as younger ones. They simply keep growing, slowly, for as long as they live. They don't slow down with age. They just become larger, more of what they already were. The flamboyant cuttlefish walks along the seafloor on its arms rather than swimming, a rare behavior in cephalopods. It pulses with vivid warning colors as it walks, yellow, red, white, and brown rippling across its body. Too toxic to eat? Too beautiful to ignore? Small and slow and dazzling and entirely safe in its own skin, the ocean has tasted every river in the world. Every river that flows to the sea carries with it dissolved minerals, sediment, and organic material from the land it crosses. Over billions of years, the ocean has received all of it, from the Nile, the Amazon, the Yangtze, the Mississippi, the slow gift of every watershed on Earth. Ice cores drilled from Antarctic glaciers contain air bubbles trapped thousands of years ago. Scientists can analyze those bubbles and know exactly what the atmosphere was like, what gases it contained, what the temperature was, going back 800,000 years. Ancient air preserved in ice. History still breathing, frozen in time. The Drake Passage between South America and Antarctica was sealed by land until about 30 million years ago. When it opened, the Antarctic Circumpolar Current was established, isolating Antarctica and beginning the process of glaciation that covered the continent in ice. A gap opening in the land. A current beginning. A continent cooling. Everything changed by a passage opening. And that's the last one. 100 facts about the ocean. 100 small, quiet things. You don't need to hold on to any of them. Let them drift away now, the way the tide carries things from the shore, gently, without effort, out into the wide, dark water, where they can rest. Notice where you are right now. The weight of your body, the warmth of it, the way the surface beneath you is holding you up completely, without asking anything in return. You don't have to hold yourself up tonight. Let your face go soft, your jaw, the space behind your eyes, all the small places where the day gets held, let them loosen now, just a little, just enough. Let your shoulders drop. Let your hands be still. Let your legs feel heavy and warm and done. Your breathing is slower than it was when we began. Notice that. Your body has already been finding its way toward rest this whole time quietly, without being told. It knows how to do this. It has always known. Somewhere out there, the ocean is doing what it always does. Waves forming in the dark, far from any shore, rising and falling in the open water. Currents moving slowly through the deep, carrying cold water on journeys that take centuries. A whale surfacing somewhere, one long breath, and then gone beneath the surface again. The ocean doesn't sleep, but it grows quieter at night. The wind drops. The surface smooths. The creatures of the deep rise slowly toward the surface in the dark, and everything above them rests. Let your breath match the water now. In, slow and full. And out, long and easy. In and out. There is nothing left to do tonight. Nothing that couldn't wait until morning. Whatever today asked of you, you gave what you could. And now it's done. And now it's time to rest. You are warm. You are safe. You are somewhere between the last thought and the first dream, and that place is soft, and it is wide, and there is nothing there that needs your attention. Let the ocean carry you now. The way it carries everything, without effort without judgment, with that deep and patient strength that has been moving since before the first living thing opened its eyes. Sleep. Rest well. The ocean will still be here when you wake up. It always is. Good night.